You wait all summer, carefully tending your garden, expecting to pull a massive, softball-sized onion out of the dirt. Instead, you tug on the green stalks and unearth a glorified scallion. If you garden in colder regions, like USDA Zone 5, you might assume you did something wrong with the soil. Most of us are trained to treat onions exactly like tomatoes or peppers. We wait until the soil is nice and warm to plant them, and we dump nitrogen fertilizer on them, expecting the summer heat to do the heavy lifting. But an onion couldn't care less about your fertilizer spikes or those warm July afternoons. If your planting timing is off by even a few weeks, all the heat and compost in the world won't force that bulb to swell. That is because an onion's development is controlled by an internal astronomical sensor. It relies on a hard-coded genetic switch that responds to the sky above it, not the soil below it. When northern gardeners end up with tiny onions, they haven't failed at basic horticulture. Their planting timeline is simply out of sync with the plant's biological clock. The life cycle of an onion is split into two very distinct acts. The first is a strictly vegetative phase, and it is ruthlessly enforced by a specific piece of genetic code called the FT4 gene. Researchers have identified FT4 as a strict bulb inhibitor. As long as this gene is actively expressing itself, the plant is physically locked out of forming a bulb. It must focus all of its energy on pushing up new green leaves above the ground. This leaf growth is critical because of an inflexible anatomical rule. Every single green leaf above ground corresponds exactly to one fleshy sheath or ring in the bulb below ground. You can think of those leaves as the structural blueprint. By maximizing the number of leaves the plant produces during this early phase, you are mathematically increasing the total number of rings, and therefore the maximum potential size of the future bulb. A gardener's only objective in the early spring is to build as much of this solar infrastructure as possible, packing on leaf after leaf, while that FT4 gene is still keeping the bulbing process turned off. Eventually, the plant senses a shift. For northern gardeners growing what are known as long-day onions, the trigger is the length of daylight. As summer approaches, the days stretch out, crossing a critical threshold of 14 to 16 hours. This photograph shows the physical reality of what happens when that light requirement is or isn't met. When onions are deprived of that critical day length, their bulb size drops off a cliff. This poster detailing diurnal expression shows the reason for that drop on a molecular level. When the leaves detect that 14 to 16 hour threshold, the production of the FT4 inhibitor gene abruptly crashes. And looking right here at the FT1 data on the same chart, we see exactly what takes place. This gene acts as a strict bulb promoter. Once it activates, the plant's programming is permanently rewritten. The plant hits a biological point of no return. It completely stops producing new leaves, taking 100% of its photosynthetic energy and redirecting it downward to inflate the rings it has already established. After the FT1 gene takes over, the structural fate of the onion is sealed. It can only swell what is already there, making any further leaf growth biologically impossible. This creates a mathematical trap for anyone who plants late in the season. If the genetic switch flips and your plant only has 4 leaves, you are locked into a tiny 4-ringed bulb. No amount of late-season watering or fertilizer can override the FT1 gene to build a 5th ring, and you cannot negotiate with the deadline. The summer solstice brings 15 hours of daylight on a fixed astronomical schedule. The sky will trigger that bulbing gene, whether your plant has grown enough leaves or not. To bypass this trap in a colder climate, you have to realize that you can't push the deadline backward into late summer. Instead, you must extend the vegetative phase backward into the cold of winter. This means starting your seeds indoors in February or March. By doing this, you ensure a mature, highly leafed plant is already developed and ready to go into the dirt the exact moment the ground thaws. If you want to pull massive onions out of your garden, you aren't actually trying to grow a bulb in the summer. You are spending your spring building massive biological solar panels, fully prepared to catch the light when the genetic switch inevitably flips.